7 layers of reality.
Reality doesn't make any sense, and I
सच है
don't
बहुत
mean
बड़ा.
that as an exaggeration. We know more about the surface of a distant planet dozens of light years away than we know about our own existence. We understand more
हम
about the
लोगों को
forces
मून
that
के बारे में
govern
ज़्यादा पता है भाई, rather than सी. ये छोटे से मेरे को पागल करती है चीज़,
black holes than we
बहुत
do
ज़्यादा.
about why we have a sense of self. The thing we call reality collapses under even the slightest scrutiny. Yet, it's something that every single person who has ever existed has experienced. That is the paradox of reality. It is simultaneously the most familiar and the most mysterious thing we will ever encounter. So mysterious, in fact, that for most of our history, reality was taken at face value. The world is here because it is. Rocks are hard because they are. The sun rises because it does. Asking why was considered a bit of a fool's errand, like asking why water's wet. But eventually, cracks started to appear. Philosophers, mystics, scientists, and ordinary people in strange states of consciousness all came to the same uncomfortable conclusion.
सबसे बढ़िया चीज़ यही है भाई कि इंसान क्वेश्चन कर रहा है चीज़ों को. इमेजिन लिविंग इन 1500 जहाँ पे तुम कुछ भी क्वेश्चन करो तो वो तुमको जला देंगे फिच बोल के, या फिर तुम गॉड के खिलाफ बोल रहे हो. थैंक
Reality
गॉड
isn't
वी
as
आर लिविंग
straightforward
राइट
as it
नाउ.
looks.
वी ऑल, तू मैं,
If reality
सबके
is so
सब अभी एग्जिस्ट कर
obvious,
रहे हैं.
why do your senses contradict themselves? Why do entire traditions describe the world as an illusion? And why do physicists, the very people who claim to be the keepers of certainty, tell us that matter is mostly empty space, time isn't absolute, and nothing is as stable as it seems? The rabbit hole of reality goes deep, way deeper than you think. From personal accounts of altered states to sprawling systems of philosophy to cutting edge science, we find the same impossible situation. What we think of as reality comes in levels, and the deeper you go, the stranger it gets. So let's dive in.
लेवल 1, लेट्स गो.
Level 1,
कॉन्शियस
the
रियलिटी,
consensus reality.
कंसेंसस रियलिटी, कॉन्शियस पढ़ रहा हूँ भाई.
Level 1 is the surface, the one we all start on, the one we all more or less can agree on. Call it consensus reality. This is the world that you wake up in every morning. You brush your teeth, grab your keys, head out the door, and everything seems straightforward. Tables are solid, water's wet, and if you stub your toe on the way out, it's going to hurt. Things remain where you left them. Objects have boundaries. Everything else seems to be navigating the world the exact same way that you
तुम
are.
लोगों ने नोटिस कर ली चीज़ है ये कंसेंस रियलिटी, कॉन्सेंस कंसेंस, फिर से प्रोनाउंसिएशन पकड़ रहा हूँ. बेसिक हम लोग की एवरीडे रियलिटी को जब भी तुम एक्सपीरियंस करते हो और बीच में कभी भी कुछ भी क्वेश्चन करोगे ना, मतलब कि जैसे कि बीच में सोच रहे कि यार ये सब एग्जिस्ट कर रहा है तो क्यों कर रहा है, मतलब ऐसी क्वेश्चंस पूछने लग गए अपने आप से मन में. तो काफ़ी वियर्ड लगता है फिर हर एक चीज़ को देख के कि तुम असली हो या फिर नकली हो, ऐसे करके. या फिर हम लोग छू रहे हैं, जब भी तुम ये सोच के छुओ किसी भी चीज़ को कि ये 99% एम्प्टी स्पेस है, तो फिर ये फील होता है कि क्या हम लोग इसको सही में फील कर रहे हैं या फिर मतलब क्या ही है. ऐसा अजीब सा फील होता है बिल्कुल.
Consensus reality feels self evident. The ground feels like ground, the air feels like air. But if you push just a little harder on these everyday assumptions, everything starts to wobble. Take your
वही
senses,
सेम
for
इसी चीज़ की बात
example.
कर रहा था मैं.
They're the only reason you believe that the world is out there. And yet, your senses are notoriously untrustworthy. Optical illusions trick your eyes, mirages bend light into landscapes that don't exist. Phantom limb syndrome convinces amputees that a leg that has been cut off is still there, and this mirror trick literally convinces your brain that a fake arm
ऑप्टिकल इल्यूजन तो
that
भाई
you
मुझे
put
हमेशा
there by
वियर्ड ही
yourself
लगते हैं.
is yours.
आई
Create voices and visions out of nothing. Even something as simple as color blindness shows that two people standing side by side
कैन
can be
एक्सपीरियंस डिफरेंट
experiencing the
रियलिटी.
world in completely different ways.
वही
Consensus reality is far less solid than it seems. Rather than objective truth, it's a stitched together agreed contract between nervous systems that says, yes, this is the world, let's all pretend we're seeing the same thing. But at this stage, reality is just the stage set, the furniture of existence. And yet, And as with any stage set, you can't help but wonder what's behind it. The rise of social media was meant to lead to greater human connections, to create a virtual
Sponsor.
amphitheater where we can spread just rooms full of our opinion, black marketists, insanely categorical and harm us. This is the
किसने
unfortunate.
करा है किसने करा है किसने
Copy
करा
the
है
link,
स्पॉन्सर?
and Incogni's
जॉन
private
डो?
experts
नहीं,
will work together
इनकॉग्नी.
to remotely
शाउट
their
आउट टू इनकॉग्नी भाई.
currency.com/off an aperture deal.
करो
Use
ये
my
जो भी
code
है. करो
aperture
कोड.
deal to get
एपर्चर डील.
60% off an ad because they can't harm the
वाओ.
realm of perception.
यस, इसी के बारे में पिछले वाले में
At
बात कर
level
रहा था मैं.
2, we start to peel away the curtain. Here, reality isn't just out there, it's in here, inside your brain. Your senses don't deliver reality directly, they deliver fragments, chaos. The world doesn't come pre-packaged in neat shapes and colors. It comes as wavelengths of light, vibrations of air molecules, chemical signatures drifting through space. And your brain has to do the heavy lifting of turning that chaos into something usable. Vision is the easiest example. Light enters your eye, hits the retina, flips the image upside down, and sends an electrical signal down to the optic nerve. What your brain actually gets is a scrambled two-dimensional pattern of electricity. Your brain then has to flip it back, stitch the blind spots together, and fill in those missing details. What you think of as seeing isn't the raw feed from the world, it's
Fucking
best
hell
guess
भाई.
reconstruction.
Fucking hell.
And it's not just vision. Time itself gets stitched together. Your brain takes discrete moments like still frames in a movie reel and smooths them into what feels like a continuous flow. That's why you don't perceive the gaps when you blink. That's why a magician can palm a card without you noticing. Your brain edits reality like a film editor, cutting and splicing, hoping that you don't catch the
This is
seams.
why illusion भी exist करते हैं. क्योंकि हम लोग का ब्रेन कंटिन्यूसली फिल्टर आउट कर रहा है चीज़ों को, तो फिर वो किसी भी चीज़ को किसी भी चीज़ से कंफ्यूज हो सकता है दो चीज़ों में.
Smell, taste, touch, all of them are selective, biased, and tuned more for survival than for revealing or expressing truth. Dogs hear frequencies we don't. Bees see colors that we can't. Birds navigate magnetic
What?
fields that
सही में 20 को और कलर दिखते हैं?
we can't even perceive.
ये नहीं पता
Your
था मुझे.
reality is not the reality. It's a narrow slice, a customized interface your species evolved to handle. The philosopher Donald Hoffman calls it the user interface theory of perception. Just like a computer desktop isn't the computer itself, your senses are not the world. They're icons on the desktop, convenient and useful, but never the real machinery. At level 2, the unsettling realization is this: you don't see reality, you see your brain's version of reality, and that, whatever it is,
हम दोनों सेम वर्ल्ड में रह रहे हैं बट एक्सपीरियंस डिफरेंट चीज़ें कर रहे हैं सब.
Level 3, the realm of belief. Level
क्या
3 is
faith?
where things start to get really slippery, because here, reality isn't just perception, it's interpretation. Take money. Physically, it's just paper, ink, or numbers flickering on a server somewhere. But socially, it's a force that can dictate where you live, who you marry, and how long you survive. Money has no inherent.
कभी मनी के लिए बोल रहे हैं कि हम लोग के दिमाग को पता है पैदा होने से ही दैट मनी इज इम्पोर्टेंट. वो ग्रेव्ड है हम लोग के जीन्स में. सोचो
Its
क्या
reality
तगड़ा
comes
होगा
from
वो
collective
वियर्ड
agreement.
इंसान वो सब के
Belief
सब.
reinforced billions of times a day until it feels as solid as granite. Or take borders. Look at the Earth from space, and you won't see any lines dividing countries. But down here, those invisible lines decide whether you're free or imprisoned, safe or endangered, wealthy or impoverished. They're abstractions, concepts.
दिस
But
इज
they
द
shape
लेवल ऑफ
lives
रियलिटी
as
दैट हम लोगों ने
powerfully
बनाई है
as
पूरी तरीके
mountains
से
and
सारे
rivers.
इंसानों ने.
Even morality itself, our sense of right and wrong, is built on cultural frameworks. Cannibalism might be a taboo in one society and a sacred ritual in another. Marriage, gender roles, honor, justice, all of them realities that we live inside, but realities that are made of man-made ideas. Ideas that can bend and change over time, stretching and collapsing to fit the needs of the group. This is what the anthropologist Clifford Geertz called webs of significance. We are suspended in them, we spin them, we get tangled in them, we pass them down from generation to generation. Level 3 reality is not physical at all, but it is no less real for it. Ideas, beliefs, and shared symbols create worlds we inhabit as fully as any physical landscape.
वही तो पूरी हम लोगों ने बनाई वाली
But
रियलिटी.
here's the kicker. Because this level is built on interpretation, it can fracture. Competing realities can clash. One group's sacred truth
That's why
becomes
religious wars होती
absurd
हैं,
fiction.
casteism होता है,
And when
racism
those
होता है,
realities
sexism होता है.
collide, wars are fought, nations fall, and entire ways of being
सिर्फ सोचो दिमाग के thoughts, beliefs, different culture जहाँ पे तुम पैदा हो रहे हो उस हिसाब से literally wars हो रही हैं सिर्फ. Wars हो रही हैं इन सब चीज़ों पे. थोड़ा ऊपर तक सोचो यार, कोई wars नहीं होगी. बट फिर काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें हट जाएंगी, कल्चर्स हट जाएंगे बहुत सारी जगह से.
Level 3, reality isn't just see, it's something you participate in, construct, and maintain. But if reality can be constructed, what does that mean about the layers that are deeper? Level 4, the realm of science. At this level, reality really stops playing nice. Up until now, things felt at least somewhat stable. Shared objects,
तीन चार चीज़ें हो सकती हैं, बहुत सारी चीज़ें जो रियलिटी को ब्रेक कर सकती हैं. ब्लैक होल्स, दे लिटरली बेंड द पाथ ऑफ लाइट, जिसकी वजह से लाइट बेंड होती है. सिंगुलैरिटी पॉइंट पे कुछ काम नहीं करता. एक्सपेंशन ऑफ द यूनिवर्स, बिग बैंग,
Instructions, cultural agreements. But
बैंग
when science
बैंग,
digs deeper,
बिग बैंग.
that entire foundation cracks open. Take matter, for instance. Everything around you feels solid. The table beneath your hands, the floor underneath your feet. But zoom in far enough and you'll find that what you're touching is mostly empty space. Atoms aren't little billiard balls all clumped together. They're ghostly probability clouds surrounding a nucleus that is itself almost entirely nothing. If you scaled an atom up to the size of a football stadium, the nucleus would be a grain of rice on the 50-yard line, and the electrons would be like gnats buzzing somewhere in the nosebleed seats. Everything else is just empty, and yet you feel solidity because of the electromagnetic forces between the atoms that are resisting each other. You never actually touch that table. Your atoms are simply repelling its atoms. Or consider time. To your everyday mind, time flows smoothly forward, a river carrying you from past to future. But Einstein's relativity shattered that illusion. Time can stretch, bend, and warp depending on how fast you move or how...
At the speed of light, time stops. क्या तुमको पता था ये चीज़? जो लाइट हम लोग के आंखों पे हिट कर रही है, ये बिग बैंग के टाइम पे रिलीज हुई थी. एंड तब से लेकर अब तक का जो वो है टाइम है, वो लाइट के पीओवी से 0 सेकंड्स में भाई. बहुत ही अच्छी सी टाइम भी. टाइम इज टोटली डिपेंड्स ऑन ग्रेविटी. ब्लैक होल के अंदर जा रहे हो तो 15-20 सेकंड में जाके जाओ, उधर पता नहीं कितने साल बीत जाएंगे. इंटरस्टेलर तो और किसी ने देखी है.
Gravity you're sitting in. An astronaut orbiting Earth for 6 months will return slightly younger than their twin on the ground, and that isn't science fiction, it is experimental fact. And then there's quantum mechanics. If relativity bent reality, quantum mechanics completely blew it. Particles don't exist in neat positions. They exist as probability waves, mathematical smears.
तुम लोग को वो चीज़ पता है? अभी तुमको दिखाता हूँ. बहुत वियर्ड चीज़ है वो, सबसे वियर्ड चीज़ है. दिस इज नथिंगनेस. ये जो स्पेस है पूरा का पूरा, इधर से लेके इधर तक एंड इधर से लेके इधर तक का पूरा, दिस इज एम्प्टी एट अ क्वांटम लेवल. दिस इज नथिंगनेस. एंड ये चीज़ मुझे भी पागल कर देता है. चीज़ नथिंगनेस लुक्स लाइक दिस. नथिंगनेस नेवर ट्रूली एग्जिस्ट्स, क्योंकि पॉसिबिलिटी हर एक चीज़ की होने की, हर एक चीज़ के होने की एक साथ होती है क्वांटम वर्ल्ड में. ये सब का सब जो है ये नथिंगनेस है. ये सारी चीज़ें हर बहुत ही ज़्यादा इंटरेस्टिंग है, बट अब
possibility.
कितना नॉर्मल है सबका
Only
सब.
when you measure them do they collapse into something definite. It's as if reality refuses to pick a shape until you're looking at it, as if it's saying to you, well, I'll only be there when you're there to notice me. Like how the toys in toy stores only act as toys when humans are around. What's even stranger is that particles can be entangled, linked, in such a way that
Yes, quantum entanglement, one of the most weird fucking concepts.
changing one instantly changes the other, even if they're separated by light years. At this level,
अगर एक बार
reality
कांटेक्ट
is
में आ गए थे देन उसके बाद तुम लोग सिग्नल भेज सकते हो. एक एटम जो है उसको भी दूसरे एस्पेक्ट तो यूनिवर्स का और एक को दूसरे पे अगर ये कभी एक साथ थे और वो अलग है तो तुम लोग इस एटम को कुछ बता सकते हो, दूसरे एटम को भी पता होगा. आई थिंक यही चीज़ होगी जो हम लोग को ब्रेक थ्रू देगी टेलीपोर्टेशन के लिए फ्यूचर में. टेलीपोर्ट अभी हम लोग कर पाते हैं साउंड्स को. मैं जो भी बोल रहा हूँ तुम सबको सुनाई दे रहा है एंड इमेजेस को, क्योंकि मैं जो भी कर रहा हूँ मेरी शक्ल मेरी क्लैपिंग जो भी मैं कर रहा हूँ सबका सब तुम सब भी देख पा रहे हो. वीडियो के चलते हम लोग साउंड्स एंड पिक्चर्स को टेलीपोर्ट करवाएं, बट पूरी फिजिकल बॉडी आई थिंक क्वांटम एंटेंगलमेंट के चलते ट्रैवल करेगी क्योंकि हम लोग खुद एटम्स के बने हैं.
no longer intuitive. It's not the stage set that you walk around on, it's a bizarre, counterintuitive, almost dreamlike structure of equations and paradoxes. The philosopher J.A. Wheeler put it bluntly: no phenomenon is a phenomenon until it is an observed phenomenon. In
Oh,
other words,
that's hard.
observation doesn't just reveal reality, in some sense, it creates it. Level 4 leaves us with a deep unease. The very tools that we use to prove reality end up undermining it. The microscope and telescope don't just show us more reality, they show us that reality itself may be slippery, provisional, and stranger than we can imagine. Level 5, the simulation layer. If level 4 dismantles reality, level 5 reimagines it altogether. This is the level where philosophers, futurists, and scientists start asking, what if there isn't a base reality at all? What if all of this is just a simulation? The idea is almost too simple, admittedly. If it's possible for civilizations to create highly realistic simulations, worlds as vivid as our own, then statistically it's far more likely that we're in one than not. After all, our base reality could spawn thousands, millions, even billions of simulations, and if so, the odds that you are in the real one are vanishingly small. This argument, popularized by philosopher Nick Bostrom, forces a radical reconsideration. Imagine that your senses, your body, your memories, even your deepest emotions are just data being rendered in real time. Imagine that the laws of physics are simply the engine of this universe, and that gravity, time, electromagnetism, and all of that are just the underlying code. And here's the unnerving part. From inside the system, you would never know. Just like a character in a video game doesn't realize they're in a game, we may be unable to perceive anything beyond the walls of this simulation. Every glitch could be dismissed as coincidence. Every anomaly could be patched. Of course, not everyone takes this literally. Some see the simulation hypothesis as a metaphor. Maybe we're not in a computer, but reality does behave like a coded system. Emergent rules generating complexity
लिटरली हम
layers.
लोग के जीन्स में कोड है. बायोलॉजी तुम लोगों ने 11 12 पढ़ी हुई तो फिर तुमको तो पता है. आवर जीन्स आर कोडेड, डीएनए में कोड है. वी आर कोडेड टू डाउन टू द fucking atom.
Stacked upon layers, illusions stacked upon illusions. Whether literal or figurative, the simulation question makes one thing clear: reality may not be ultimate. It might be nested, a copy of a copy. And if that's true, then what we call real is just the interface, just the rendered software of a program running somewhere else. Level 6, mystical reality.
द क्वेश्चनिंग एबिलिटी कि हम लोग के पास एबिलिटी कि हम लोग क्वेश्चन कर रहे हैं अपनी पूरी रियलिटी को मेक्स अस रियल.
At this
बहुत
level,
क्रेजी
science and
चीज़
philosophy
बोली है,
gives
अच्छा
way to
लगता है मुझे
something
बहुत
older:
ज़्यादा. आई थिंक देयरफॉर आई
mysticism.
एम.
Because for thousands of
अच्छा
years, entire
कंक्लूजन है
cultures
लेकिन
have been saying what
लेजी है
physicists are now
थोड़ा
only
सा.
starting to whisper.
पीछे कर देता
Entire
तुम लोगों ने सुना
ways
नहीं
of
होगा.
the world.
तुम लोगों ने सुना नहीं होगा, सॉरी.
At this level, science and philosophy gives way to something older, mysticism. Because for thousands of years, entire cultures have been saying what physicists are now only starting to whisper. The world you see is not the real world. It's a veil, an illusion. Hinduism calls it Maya. Buddhism calls it samsara. Gnostics call it a false world or a trap. Across traditions, the message is strikingly consistent. The everyday world is less real than it appears, and behind it lies a deeper ground of meaning. Mystics, meditators, and psychonauts often report dissolving into this deeper layer. They describe reality as melting, as boundaries between self and the world collapsing. The chair, the floor, the breath, the body, all of it revealed as one continuous field, more vivid than vivid, more real than real. The writer Aldous Huxley called it the mind at large. Neuroscientists studying psychedelics speak of the default mode network dissolving, the brain's internal storyteller shutting down, allowing raw experience to flood in. Whatever the mechanism, the effect is the same. The world you thought was solid becomes transparent, and something infinite shines through. Here, reality is not something that you live in. Reality is something you are, and everything else too. The line between subject and object, self and other, collapses. What's left is unity, one vast, undivided whole. Level 6 raises profound questions. If this state feels more real than everyday life, which one should we call reality? And if mystical traditions across the world have pointed to this for millennia, does that mean science has been peering at shadows while ignoring the light? Level 7, the unknowable realm.
सारी
Finally,
चीज़ें हमें
we
बिग बैंग के पहले क्या था, स्पेस के बाहर क्या है, इसमें तो सारी चीज़ें हैं
reach
सेवंथ
the
लेयर
last
में.
level, the place where all descriptions fail, where every model, every belief, every theory collapses. Call it the unknowable, the ineffable, the groundless ground. This is where philosophy runs out of language, where science admits ignorance, where spirituality falls back on metaphor. Because whatever reality ultimately is, it's beyond concepts. The Tao Te Ching begins with the line, "The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao." In other words, the moment you try to define ultimate reality, you've already missed it. The map is not the territory, the word water is not wet. At this level, reality is less something to be solved and more something to be experienced. It's the silence behind thought, the mystery behind measurement, the abyss behind existence itself. Maybe it's the source of consciousness. Maybe it's the hidden laws that generate universes. Maybe it's something forever inaccessible to us. But perhaps that's the truest insight. Reality is not a riddle to be cracked. It's the very medium in which riddles, questions, and answers arise. It's not something you stand outside of and analyze. It's something you are, inescapably, at every moment. From consensus reality to perception to belief to physics to simulation to mysticism, all the way to the unknowable, the journey through the 7 levels of reality doesn't just reveal how strange the world is. It reveals how strange it is to even be here at all. Maybe reality isn't one thing or 7 things. Maybe it's the act of layering itself, the way each level hides the next, the way the obvious conceals the incomprehensible. And maybe the deepest truth of reality isn't that it's an illusion or a simulation or an ineffable mystery. Maybe the deepest truth is that it's all of those at once.
Reality is everything.